Well, four superb papers there. I just want to know, does anyone have any questions for any/all of the speakers? Yes, Sarah's got a question.
I suppose kind of drawing from your presentation, Anna, and all of the presentations, I kind of have a question around, I think we're all sitting here today kind of almost debating whether we have a choice in participating in AI. And what was interesting to me was how many people in your presentation, Michaela, said they weren't using AI. And do you think that that's actually possible? I think I'm probably using it without even realizing it. And like, how much consent do we even have in this case? Like, we are probably all using AI inadvertently anyway. I don't know if that's...
Yes, I think, are we live? Okay. I think that the 10.8% or whatever of the people who said they were unsure that they were using AI in the survey, it's probably much higher than that. I think a lot of the no crew probably fall into the unsure crew, but it is everywhere. So I think, yeah, a lot of the comments, I really wish I could talk more about the results, but a lot of the comments, most of them said that they're pretty sure their institutions use AI in other ways, but they're unsure specifically how they use it in their jobs. But the answer is probably everyone does in some way.
Thanks, Sarah. That's a great question. So once upon a time, I tried talking to a chatbot, and the chatbot asked me some questions, and it asked me about what I was working on, which I like to talk about with people, as we do here, and I started to explain it. And then the chatbot said, "Oh, interesting," and he continued asking. And then I was like, wait a minute, what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to use it? And the chatbot said, if it's good enough for me. So that's how I unknowingly ended up contributing to AI.
What a jerk.
I guess I can go next. I mean, I gesture towards a similar idea in mine, kind of even by the fact that it's like, hey, I used AI images in my presentation because, hey, without even really consenting to that, it is in PowerPoint. It is something that is admittedly handy to use in or for the purposes of making a presentation. At the exact same time, that's not something that I could say, oh, I don't want to see this or anything like that. It boots up immediately and stuff like that. But like, I think about that, and a key term that came to mind in the first half of the presentations this morning was surveillance capitalism. And the idea that like, yeah, we're being surveyed and our data is being captured in many different ways, and that is going to feed into a monetary system, therefore. But I think we should be very hesitant. We should be very aware of the ways that whether or not we consent to this at this point basically doesn't matter, because there is already money on us. There is money on our phones, how they are reacting to us and our movement and different things, and how that is going to impact our creation that's already in play right now because of the rush to market with AI over as is, because like this presentation and everything that we're probably talking about here is going to be semi-outdated by next week because there's another thing that we have to keep in touch with. So yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Yes, Dom.
There's so many points of contact among you four talks, but one I noticed in particular was community as a theme. So in Dale's presentation... Can you use your microphone, Dom? Sorry.
I resent this technology. In Dale's presentation, it's the family, right? And in Peter, it's obviously the Dogen community is there. And Michaela, it's creating the community in the art gallery is one of them, at least one of those places, and then cybernetics and government. It can't be a coincidence that all your presentations touch on community. So do you have any thoughts about why community would come up in AI in particular?
think people are looking to me. And that's a really good question that I think I should think about more. But also, I would say, I think there's a loneliness to the idea of not being able to use art to communicate with people on both the part of, a would-be artist and the people receiving the art. And maybe that's part of why people feel so frustrated by the lack of the soul, quote unquote, or the lack of the artist, because they're hoping to make a connection through art. But the thing about the Situationists is that they were anti-art because they think that any art creates a barrier or a mediator to the best form of human connection, which is face-to-face, in person, with lots of booze.
I don't know if I have an answer. It's just your question makes me think of another question, which is not new. As I was researching these artists, and specifically Sogwen Chung, I was looking at the photos of her in her studio with her robots, and I was thinking to myself how that looked different, what would that studio look like if she had another human artist with her? Or like other people, like artists who worked with in community. It's I don't know, like I said, it's not an answer, it's just another question that I had while I was looking at those images, how different it struck me, that collaboration. And so, yeah, it's really interesting that you pointed out community. And like Anna said, I'm gonna have to think more about it.
Yeah, community comes up in my presentation just sort of as, well, the main topic, but also just kind of as you were getting towards a general theme between all of ours, is that people are looking for not only communities of ways to introduce AI to each other, but also in response to that, hey, can we create something that genuinely create, or a community around AI art production in some way for prompt sharing and stuff like that. But I think inevitably it's, why would we go for a community in general? We're looking for a companionship in some way to bounce ideas off of each other, and we're all as kind as we can possibly be. So inevitably, I think, yeah, maybe I would say that AI art production is in some way isolating because of how you can reduce so much human need for people in different ways, but having a community of people there, even if I disagree with how, whether or not there is a soul in AI art or something like that, I think having people there to connect would definitely help and kind of lend itself towards building something that's better and a broader community of creation. That probably didn't read too well, but I hope that's nonetheless helpful.
I totally agree with what Peter's saying. A lot of the respondents in the survey also echoed that, and like their hesitancy towards using AI is like they used words like isolation and solitary because those are words that they associate with AI. But in the arts and culture sector, now more than ever is a time where people are yearning for community in many other issues in the sector. And so I think that maybe some of the hesitancy about some people using AI, but then to Sarah's question, everyone probably is anyways, but I think the active use of it has different connotations than the passive use, perhaps.
We'll just take one final question.
I'm Sophie. Hello. It's not really a question, but it's more like kind of my thoughts on that question, Dom, is that I think as humans, we just like inherently try to create community and like go towards community for kind of every aspect of our lives. And I don't see why that would be different for AI. You know, we're creating our own communities surrounding it and kind of like incorporating it, and maybe not as a community member itself, but just like as an addition to the community. Kind of like in my head, I'm just picturing it as like the AI is in the middle and then the community is like around it kind of thing. And yeah, so that's what I kind of connected between everybody. And I do come from community arts, so what you were just saying, Michaela, too, community is so like needed and wanted in arts right now. So I think the AI tools, AI art is just giving people another reason to create a community. Yeah.
Do any of the... We'll take one final comment from John over there. John, do you want to take a microphone?
I just want to say thank you. Those are all really good presentations today. One thing that came up, you guys, a lot of people touched on with ethics. And my question is, ethics is, there's not one general ethics, it's more cultural. And do you think that with the emergence of artificial intelligence, are we going to create a new set of ethics, or how is artificial intelligence dealing with ethics, or is it dealing with ethics? I'd just like to hear some of your thoughts on it.
Peter?
I mean, ethics, even in the morning presentations, ethics came up a lot, and it came up around copyright and stuff like that. But I remember a reaction that I had to the morning presentations was like, well, yeah, there's all these big questions about ethics and copyright laws and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, what's the potential of a big company just moving money in the US or something like that and saying, oh no, getting a politician somewhere to say, oh no, all AI art is legal and we can copyright it properly. So like, to a certain extent, yeah, I think ethics will move to a certain extent, but I'd be interested to see what like artists and AI artists and philosophers from there would say, as inevitably I have a feeling that companies who are most interested in AI will definitely step on toes to push something. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Anna.
In the case of cybernetics, which I know is a little different, it comes out, post-war, and so of course there were very serious, prevalent concerns about regulation and bureaucracy, and the idea that if put in the wrong hands, these systems wouldn't allow for chance and opportunities that were part of an unknown. They were actually hypothesized to become incredibly boring, controlling, conformist, and ultimately could lead to very unethical dystopian societies, some theorists thought, similar to fascism.
As you were saying, there are lots of different kinds of ethics sort of in this big pool. But I think a good example of how it's being ethical in my presentation and my survey is how institutions are using AI to develop this metadata. They're not pretending that humans are doing this work. Like on the front user end, they're being very clear, bless you, what is human generated and what is machine generated. And so I think making that distinction very obvious to everybody is good. So that's kind of one positive that I see coming out of what I'm looking at.
Okay, well, let's call it a day. Can we end with a round of applause for all the students and all the speakers?